In 2016, California wife and mother Sherry Papini disappeared for 22 days. When she was found, she told authorities a detailed account of being kidnapped and tortured. Years later, in a stunning twist, Papini pled guilty to making false statements about what happened to her, setting off a media firestorm. Now, for the first time, Sherry Papini is telling her side of the story and revealing shocking new information. Sherry Papini, Caught in a Lie, an ID documentary event, Monday, May 26th at 9 on ID. Set your DVR. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 294 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, what is going on?
What's happening, man?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
Yeah, good. Me too.
So let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout-outs.
Let's do it.
We had Christy Tolugan.
Hey, Tolugan.
Laura Arnold.
What's going on, Arnold?
Peyton Smith.
What's going on, Peyton?
The DeRosa Rouquette family.
Easy for you to say.
Not really.
What's going on, Rocote family?
Tina McCants.
Hey, Tina.
Megan Hawker.
What's going on, Megan?
Eric Molnar.
Hey, thanks, Molnar.
Crystal Ing.
Hey, Crystal.
Raylan Paul.
Well, thank you, Paul.
Sugar Sticks.
What's up, Sugar Sticks?
Linda Baker.
I'm still thinking about Sugar Sticks.
Oh, yeah. And the way you say it, too.
Hey, Linda.
Cindy Stanley.
Hey, appreciate that, Stanley.
Alicia Mason.
Hey, thank you, Alicia.
Zoe Kelly.
Hi, Zoe.
Elwira Oliwa.
Ooh, Oweewa.
Sarah Sweat jumped out at her highest level.
What's going on, Sarah?
Sylvia Davis.
Hey, thank you, Sylvia.
Emma McPherson.
Appreciate that, Emma.
Christina Furnish.
There's good old Christina.
Rochelle Emery.
Hey, Rochelle.
Pencil Junkie.
What's going on, Junkie?
Susie Corbett.
Hey, Susie.
And last but not least, Nick Osborne jumped out at her highest level.
It's Ozzy's relative.
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be. And if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Amber Guykin.
Like the lizard? Guykin?
No, that's Geico.
Oh, close.
Geico.
That's close.
And then on PayPal, we had donations from Yading Tina Chang.
Hey, what's going on, Chang?
Marguerite McCowan left a sizable donation.
Wow, thank you, Marguerite.
And Richard Amy.
Hey, appreciate that, Richard.
So thanks to everyone. We really appreciate it. Gibbs, right now, we have a lot out. We have a Patreon episode that dropped on Saturday on Robert Liberty, who was a man known as the Candlelight Killer.
Not the romantic type.
No. Very strange case. A guy who was found innocent by reason of insanity and then went on to kill a number of people.
Yeah.
More people. And then on True Crime All the Time Unsolved, we have an episode out on the Phillip Island murders. So we're headed to Australia for that one.
Just a little island off of the city of Melbourne. And we're going to look into the murder of one individual and a disappearance of another. Kind of a love triangle thing happening there.
All right. So definitely check that out. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I'm ready.
We're talking about Mary Keenan O'Connor.
A little Irish.
Yeah, definitely a lesser known criminal, but her case made front page headlines. There were rumors that Mary O'Connor confessed to murder in her sleep. This was quickly proven false, but the true details of the crime were shocking and disturbing to the residents of Philadelphia. Gibbs, at first, I thought this was definitely just going to be a one-parter, but there's so much information surrounding this case and the trial and things that go on after that it just has to be a two-parter. So in this episode, we'll discuss the murder of 5-year-old Nancy Gleen, Mary's confession, and her infamous murder trial. Yeah. Mary Keenan O'Connor was born on July 2nd, 1918 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Mary's parents were Robert and Mary O'Connor. Robert was a high school math teacher in Philly. Mary lived with her parents in the West Oak Lane district of Philadelphia. Now, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer, neighbors described Mary as a big husky girl.
Husky?
Husky.
I was a husky boy.
I know you were.
Yeah.
So was I. Fond of outdoor sports and apparently only mildly interested in feminine pursuits. Mary had a reputation of being very bad-tempered, according to her neighbors. So this was written in the Philadelphia Inquirer. Probably not what we would see today.
Probably not.
And this is something that you and I have talked about, in cases that go back a little bit further, some of the writing was really rough.
It really was.
And okay, they weren't politically correct. They didn't use the same type of words that we would use today.
Kind of like watching an episode of Mad Men.
And even, just a little bit further back than that. But
Yeah.
Mary's friends called her Tarzan because of her athletic ability. She was a sports star at Camden Girls Catholic High School. So I don't know. For most girls, I don't think these are labels that they would really want to have put on them. I don't know how many girls want to be called Tarzan. I don't know how many people in general want to be described as big, husky. I mean, some people might wear that as a badge of honor. I don't know.
Maybe. I know I didn't want to wear that tagline of being husky, but I did.
At the time of her arrest, Mary was a college student. In the fall of 1935, she studied physical education at Temple University and transferred to Immaculata College. In the summer of 1936 and 1937, she was one of 20 young women hired to work at Camp Happy, an institution for underprivileged children. Mary's best friend and co-counselor was Mrs. Marie Kibler Phillips, an ex-Temple University student and Olympic gymnast.
Camp Happy. Sounds like the perfect name.
Yeah. It's a camp. It's going to make you happy. Sounds like it was a good thing too, right? For underprivileged children. Yeah. They're trying to do something good.
It also probably makes the parents happy too, because their kids are away.
They get some time to themselves. Yeah. But Mary returned from camp on September 2nd or 3rd, 1937. On Labor Day of that year, 19-year-old Mary Keenan O'Connor murdered her 5-year-old neighbor, Nancy Gleen, in a fit of rage. Nancy was found dead in the mid-afternoon of September 6th. Her body was found face down in a mud puddle, covered by a flattened metal drum, often described as a piece of tin in a lot of the newspaper articles. The police initially believed Nancy was attacked and dragged to the puddle where she was found. But on September 29th, a coroner's jury declared Nancy's death accidental. But according to the New York Times, what the coroner's jury didn't know was that Mary confessed to a friend and eventually to her parents. Mary said she was haunted by sleepless nights, which led her to confess to this murder.
I think it'd be very difficult to keep that bottled up within.
I would think for most people, right? If you're not a psychopathic serial killer,
yeah,
the taking of another human being's life, and especially, think about a sweet, innocent little 5-year-old. How could you live with yourself? How could you live with what you had done? It seems to me as though it would just eat you up inside.
It would.
Mary confessed to her close friend, Marie Phillips, on September 7th, 1937. She told Marie that she had accidentally murdered Nancy Gleen. Marie couldn't believe it and told Mary to go upstairs and lay down. Marie came up a few minutes later and Mary told her the full story. Marie's husband, Chester, came upstairs and Mary confessed to him as well. So, I'm taking this as kind of one of those, I don't believe what you're saying. Obviously, you must be tired. You're not feeling well. Go upstairs and lay down because what you're saying doesn't make any sense.
You need to get some rest. You're talking nonsense at this point.
But obviously, when that person continues on and then, your husband comes up and she tells the same story to him, at that point, you got to start maybe believing it or thinking something's wrong here. Marie Phillips later said that she and her husband were haunted by the confession. Chester told the Philadelphia Inquirer, ever since the day Mary O'Connor walked into our home with newspapers telling about little Nancy Gleen, we have thought nothing else day and night. We would talk about it when we were alone. Of one thing we agreed, we wouldn't tell the police. Mary had confided to her friend, my wife, in her hour of need, insisting that it was an accident, and we believed her.
And at this point, why wouldn't they believe her? They're best friends.
Yeah, I get it. You're going to believe what that person is telling you, but what do you do with the information? Because now you already know it.
Yeah.
You can't unknow it.
Right. You can't just forget about it.
No. So you have to make the decision. Do you go to the police or not? And it sounds like they made the decision that they weren't going to.
They didn't want to do that to Mary.
When Mr. and Mrs. O'Connor visited the Phillipses' home, Marie told them about Mary's confession. According to Marie's statement to Police Captain John Murphy, they didn't say anything about knowing it at the time, but you could tell that they did just by looking at them.
And I get what they're saying, right? You know when somebody knows something.
Well, and especially something this shocking, you can tell by a person's reaction on a lot of things. But the more shocking the news is that you're telling them, I think the more you can tell whether or not that person already knows it or not. The police arrested Mary based on information given to them by the Philadelphia Inquirer. They received a tip from the newspaper late on the night of November 21st. That evening, Mary was arrested inside her grandfather's home in Merchantville, New Jersey. Mary confessed in the early morning hours of November 22nd. She gave her confession to 4 police officers: Captain John Murphy, Detective Warren Murphy, Detective O'Connell, and Sergeant Lloyd J. Masson.
So she's got 4 detectives sitting in a room when she's telling this story.
Yeah, and what she told them was that on September 6th, Nancy followed Mary down a muddy lane. While she was riding her bike, Mary fell off her bike and some coins fell out of her pocket. Nancy helped her pick them up, and then she begged Mary for a ride on the bike. But then Nancy started eating some berries, which was something that she shouldn't have been doing. Mary told her to stop, but Nancy wouldn't listen. Mary said she was angry, and so she knocked her down with a blow to the chin. Mary said she then hit Nancy again to stop her from screaming. Nancy fell down. Mary checked but couldn't feel a pulse. And so she put Nancy face down in a muddy pool and then covered the body with a flattened oil drum. Mary said she covered Nancy's body because a man was working in the nearby fields, and she didn't want him to see the little girl.
There you have it.
But what do you have? I get what you're saying. There you have it. She's laid it out. But what has she really laid out?
Well, she's laid out what she wants you to hear.
Or what really happened.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know.
At this moment, right?
I think the one thing that you can say is that she's at least laid out that she caused the death of this little 5-year-old girl.
Accidental or not, she's saying this is what happened.
Well, and can it be accidental if you strike somebody?
I don't think so.
It may not be first degrees, not premeditation.
Right.
But can you really call it accidental?
I mean, you struck a 5-year-old in the face and then
you hit her again.
Yeah.
That's not accidental.
Right.
And let's not forget, you then put her face down in a muddy pool of water.
Yeah. And chose to cover her up.
Yes.
And not do anything to maybe save her life.
Now, Mary refused to sign her confession, and she requested to see her father. She was afraid to fall asleep at the county jail because she was fearful that she would talk in her sleep. This led to rumors that Mary's father heard her make the confession in her sleep, but her father, denied this. And I think this, you can read in some of the old papers, it was like headline news.
Yeah.
Woman confesses to murder in her sleep, and you can just picture how it goes from there.
They probably sensationalized it, didn't they?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Because who wouldn't want to read about that?
Oh, yeah.
If I saw that headline, I would want to read that. I'd want to figure out what was going on. Mary's attorney, William Gray, announced that he would seek a writ of habeas corpus to have her committed. Her attorney advised that she waive extradition in Camden. At her commitment hearing, though, Mary's attorney demanded that she be sent to county jail. But Camden Mayor Davis Wilson said he didn't want to hold her on any charges until he had all the evidence. So on November 22nd, Mary was committed without bail, pending her next hearing. Detective Murphy spoke at the hearing on November 22nd and said that on the evening of the 21st, he went to the home of Mary's grandfather. He said that Mary was on his list of people to question because she owned a bicycle, and a witness reported seeing a girl with a bike at the crime scene. So Mary's grandfather invited Detective Murphy in. At one point, Mary came down the stairs, and when she was asked about Nancy, she told the detective that she wanted to speak to him privately. And according to the New York Times, Detective Warren Murphy testified about Mary's confession. He said, "She told me that she had chastised Nancy for eating berries from a roadside bush, which she had been forbidden to eat, and also because she kept teasing her, asking her to take her for a ride on her bicycle. She told me that she lost her head, struck Nancy on the chin, and knocked her down. After covering the body, she went to a cemetery close by and pulled off her gloves. She burned them there in a field. Then she went to a certain home and washed the mud off her shoes and went home."
Sounds like she knew what she was doing on the cleanup part, right?
Well, I was going to say this is kind of damaging from a number of different angles. Number one, you have her striking this girl.
Right.
And then you have the burning of the gloves, the washing off the shoes of mud. Okay, why are you doing all that stuff? Because you're trying to get rid of evidence?
I mean, you're not doing anything to try to help the little girl at that point.
No, absolutely not. I think what you're doing is trying not to get caught.
Yeah.
Mary said that after cleaning up, she went on a car ride with her father. They got home at 4:30 p.m. There was a huge crowd outside the Glen home. She and her parents went out for dinner. When they came back, they learned that Nancy's body had been found. They went to the crime scene. A man in the crowd said he saw a girl on a bicycle. The New York Times reported that according to Detective Murphy, she said, "I was terribly frightened. And the next day, she told me she bought all of the Philadelphia papers and went out to see a girlfriend in West Philadelphia. There, she told this girl the complete story." So that's her friend, right, that we already talked about.
Right. Went out and bought all the papers.
And why would you do that? Because you want to see what information is known. You want to see if you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
If they're going to put it together, if they're going to, come after you. The detective said, that Mary told him she was terribly frightened. I imagine she was terribly frightened.
Of course.
Now, we'll get into it, I'm sure. Did she mean to kill this girl? Did she snap? But once she hears that a man in the crowd saw a girl on a bicycle and she knows she's that girl, okay, she's got to be very, very worried that it's just a matter of time.
Right. It's going to come back.
And it did happen pretty quickly, right? They came to talk to her. I mean, I think what we can't lose sight of in all this is that, they live next door to each other. So she's going to be talked to at some point,
right,
regardless. Mayor Wilson stated that he believed that Nancy's body showed signs of a struggle, which was not disclosed in the coroner's report. On November 22nd, Coroner Charles Hirsch said he would reopen the case.
I'm sure he appreciate being called out there, but it's the right thing to do. I mean, if the mayor says, "I'm pretty sure that her body showed signs of a struggle," you need to redo that.
I also found it interesting how in the 1930s involved a mayor was.
Oh, yeah.
In kind of the criminal side of things, whether to issue charges and, things that mayors today really have much to do with.
Right.
Mary's neighbors told the press that Mary may have had a grudge against the Gleen family. Several years before her arrest, she had what was described as a good-natured scuffle with Joseph Gleen, who was only 4 years old at the time. During the scuffle, he bit Mary's finger and the wound became infected. Okay, I'm pretty sure that happens all over the world every day, somewhere in the world. People are playing around, kids are playing. Yeah. A small kid bites an older kid. You're going to hold a grudge over that and then, kill this kid's sister?
Right.
Not over that.
No. Or at least you hope not.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen people murder for, reasons that just seem so outlandish. On November 24th, Mayor Wilson announced that he planned to issue warrants charging 2 young women with what he called abnormal practices. So these charges involved Mary and her friend Marie Phillips. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, the new evidence led the mayor to imply that Nancy Gleen was killed in resisting erotic advances.
There's something you don't really hear today.
No. And the Inquirer provided a summary of kind of how these allegations came out. They said, pursuing a strong suspicion that a sex angle existed in the slaying of the Gleen child, detectives have uncovered information, not only giving further weight to that theory, but an entirely separate and collateral situation involving literally dozens of other young women. Spurred by this discovery, detectives settled down yesterday to questioning of every acquaintance of Mary Keenan O'Connor in order to trace the ramifications of the alleged situation, as well as in search of any confirmatory evidence of their now strongly reinforced theory of the circumstances which the death of the Gleen child took place. The mayor issued a statement. On affidavits I have before me, I propose to issue warrants for the defendants, Mary Keenan O'Connor and Mrs. Marie Kibler Phillips. This is the most extraordinary case of my 30 years of experience in criminal prosecution. The report of the coroner's physician on his conclusion as to the injury on Nancy's body, as disclosed by the postmortem examination, which I criticized at the time, certainly requires thorough investigation.
Well, I think he's saying it right there, right? We need to do a deep dive.
Which the guy said that he would do. The report of the undertaker as to scratches on the dead girl's legs and certain other bruises and marks on her body do not agree with the coroner's physician's report. The police of the 25th District were entirely too anxious to close this case to satisfy me. There are certain other very interesting and significant injections into this case. I intend to see that justice is done without regard to any powerful interest being exerted.
You just don't hear that much about undertakers anymore.
Well, you definitely don't hear the word used, I think, as much as you did back in the day.
This mayor has a lot to say.
Yeah, I mean, he does. And obviously what he is saying is that he wants to get to the bottom of these other circumstances, being this angle that there was some type of sexual advance involved, and that's what led to the murder. Ever since we got back from CrimeCon in Vegas, I feel like there's been a little something missing. Life's too short for a day without fun. Get a thrill whenever you need it with Slotomania, the world's #1 free slots game. I love playing this game. It is definitely a unique gaming experience. The graphics are beautiful. They have huge progressive jackpots, fun freebies, mini games. There's really something new every day for endless variety. And that rush you feel when you win a big jackpot, that's awesome. Slotomania has added perks like free spins and free coins, so there's always something unexpected waiting. Hundreds of original Vegas style and video slot machines ready to play wherever you are. It's like a Vegas vacation without the luggage and the travel. When your day is feeling stale, just ask, what will today spin? If you're 21 or older, you can join millions of players around the world. Download Slotomania, the #1 free slots game on the App Store or Google Play Store, and get 1 million free coins. That's Slotomania on the App Store or Google Play Store for 1 million free coins. Imagine having one extra day every week, more time to cook healthy meals, work on that novel, or just binge some good reality TV or true crime podcasts. Now it's all possible with ClickUp, the productivity platform that'll save you one day a week on work guaranteed. ClickUp began with the premise that productivity was broken. Too many tools to keep track of, too many things in entirely separate ecosystems. ClickUp is the one tool to house all your tasks, projects, docs, goals, spreadsheets, and more. It's built for teams from 1 to over 1,000 and packed with features and customization options that no other productivity tool has, so you can work the way you work best. Whether you're in project management, engineering, sales, marketing, or HR, doesn't matter. ClickUp has easy-to-use solutions that create a more efficient work environment. Join the more than 800,000 highly productive teams using ClickUp today. Use code TCAT to get 15% off ClickUp's massive unlimited plan for a year, meaning you can start reclaiming your time for under $5 a month. Sign up today at clickup.com and use code TCAT. Hurry, this offer ends soon. The Phillips learned about the charges against Mary when they returned to their apartment on the afternoon of the 24th. Marie Phillips said, "It's a lie. It's not true. I don't know who would start such a report." She was very upset, and a lot of papers said that, she sobbed and sobbed. And I could understand that. I mean, listen to what is being now said about her. She's now being lumped in.
She is.
Along with Mary, not just in the murder, but also in what is turning out to be some type of sexual controversy or cult or club or whatever they're trying, whatever road they're trying to go down.
Yeah, something that she doesn't want to be part of,
and something that according to her she wasn't. Mr. Phillips hired an attorney for his wife and said, "We have not been away from our home. We have no intention of going away. Both my wife and myself are available either to the police or the mayor all of the time and at any time. That is all I can say." According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, they both pledged to stand by Mary. When Marie was asked why she didn't tell the police, she said, "Because naturally of loyalty for a friend. My telling it wouldn't bring Nancy back." You and I talked about it a little bit earlier, but now the situation has changed. Now she's being lumped in or being brought into this thing. So you could see why people, after hearing that she may be involved in some way, would be very questioning of why she didn't go to the police after Mary confessed, more so than if she wasn't involved at all.
Exactly.
Because now there might be an actual reason for her not to want to go to police. So we mentioned it that originally a coroner's jury determined that Nancy died accidentally. A doctor performed Nancy's autopsy. An undertaker prepared her body for burial. No reports of injuries were included in the autopsy report. Detective Russell Allen told the press that he never believed Nancy died accidentally, but his protests were overruled. He investigated the crime scene and saw evidence that a bike passed through what he called the desolate, unpaved, and muddy backwoods lane near Nolan's Wood. Mary said in her confession that her fight with Nancy started when she fell off her bike onto the muddy path.
I don't know if you could really call it a fight. I mean, that's what she's calling it, but when you hit a 5-year-old, it's probably not going to be much of a fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange word to use, I guess. Police Captain Murphy was dissatisfied with Mary's confession. In 1936, the city of Philadelphia experienced a series of sex crimes against children, and the Missing Persons and Sex Squad was formed out of the Missing Person Squad. And it's thought that this is most likely why the police believed there was a sexual motive to the murder. So apparently, they had experienced a large number of sex crimes against children just the year before.
Which is alarming.
It is alarming. It just shows you, though, that, these types of crimes are not new. They're not recent. I mean, we're talking about 1936 here.
Yeah. They're around back then, probably before then, and we know after.
The mayor accidentally disclosed that 2 children from Camp Happy reported inappropriate practices. A member of the police squad said that they had evidence that other people at camp were suspected of participating in sex abnormalities. You know what this reminds me of, Gibbs, is kind of a little bit of like a 1980s satanic panic.
Kind of, yeah.
Where it almost seemed as like, no matter what happened, the thought was that there could possibly be ties to Satanism or, the occult or something like that. It's almost as if they thought, well, this little girl was killed. It had to have something to do with a sex crime.
Sure.
One of the witnesses who came forward and provided an affidavit was an inmate at the county prison, someone who had connections with Camp Happy. This person, after hearing about Mary's arrest, wrote a letter to a friend about the actions of other young women at Camp Happy.
So it sounds like maybe Camp Happy really wasn't all that happy.
Well, a lot of people are saying that there was some stuff going on. Nancy's mother, Margaret, said she didn't believe that Nancy was murdered because of a squabble or some type of outburst of anger. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, Margaret said Mary's confession is untrue. She was seen looking very queer and doing a lot of peering around the corner shortly before Nancy was discovered missing. I think she was trying to get Nancy's attention. I think she lured her to that horrible road. Nancy was found 3 blocks away from home, and she never was a child who strayed. I do not believe Mary's story that she hit Nancy to make her stop eating berries. There are no berries along that road. Everybody admits that Mary was a very queer girl. She never went with boys. She's masculine, and she has hands like a man. Something is wrong when a girl spends all her time on athletics. When we first moved here several years ago, I used to see Mary playing with other girls her own age. But recently, she has been very solitary and kept to herself. When I first heard she had done this thing, I pitied her. But now, thinking it over, I despise her. It's not true. As I understand, the coroner stated that there were no marks on Nancy. Her face was bruised, and there were many scratches on her legs. All right, so we got to dissect this. There's a lot here.
There's a whole lot there.
First of all, I thought the word queer was very strange to me. I'm sure that's a word that they used back in the day. And then for the longest time, that was a word that was not supposed to be used. But it seems as though in the last year or two, that word has come back into the vernacular, and I think people are using it again. I don't use it, but I think it's okay now. I'm not sure. I'm hearing it a lot, as though it's been okayed.
So you put it back in your vernacular?
No, I probably won't say it, but unless I'm wrong, I'm hearing a lot of people saying it in mainstream.
Sure.
So my assumption is that it's come back and it's being used and it's been okayed
in their vernacular
by certain groups.
Yeah. I just want to say vernacular.
But you can't. I know you keep trying, but you're not saying it correctly. It's funny though. But this whole thing, this whole statement to the Philadelphia Inquirer is really around how Mary acted.
Sure.
And is basically saying, okay, I used to see her with other girls. Now I don't. She's solitary. Well, kids go through that at certain points in their life. She doesn't go around with boys. She's masculine. She has hands like a man.
Yeah.
Well, people did call her Tarzan. She was very athletic. But, you can see where she's going with this kind of line.
Yeah, and this is her mom.
Yeah, this is Nancy's mom.
Yeah.
The victim's mom. So she's leaning into this theory.
Of course.
That this murder was somehow sexual in nature.
Yeah, not just about her eating berries, because there was no berries, right? I mean, she makes that very clear.
Judge Harry McDevitt, a friend of Robert O'Connor, spoke to a number of papers about the case. He said that O'Connor told him that he thought Mary was mentally deranged when she confessed the murder to him. Mary denied killing Nancy, but the whole neighborhood believed she did it. Robert O'Connor didn't learn the truth until he took Mary to Marie Phillips's home. When they got home from the meeting, Mary confessed. He took her to a psychiatrist who suggested that she be sent to the Pennsylvania hospital for mental and nervous diseases. Mary stayed there for a few days, but said she didn't like the hospital. The psychiatrist advised a change of scenery, and she was taken to her grandparents' house in Merchantville shortly before she was arrested.
I mean, so Mary's trying to tell everybody, this is what I've done.
Yeah, and you have a number of people who heard her, but they didn't reach out to the police. Again, it goes back to that question that we've debated a number of times. What would you do if one of your children came to you and said, I've done this horrible thing?
Yeah.
I think as a parent, each person has to try to answer that, in their own mind. On November 23rd, Marie Phillips was held on a $500 bail as a material witness. On the 24th, the Inquirer revealed that some City Hall detectives did not believe Mary was the killer. The condition of the ground would have made it very difficult, and in their words, physically impossible to ride a bicycle. They said the mud was ankle deep. Okay, well, if that's true, you cannot ride a bicycle in ankle deep mud.
Yeah, I think it'd be tough to ride a bike, no matter how good you are, through that thick mud.
Depending on the condition of the mud, but ankle deep, if it really was kind of thick, what we're thinking, it would be tough.
Yeah, it's not like they had mountain bikes back then, like you see today with the really thick tires.
Oh, yeah, these would have been the real thin tires probably. But these are detectives saying this. They also said that there were no tire prints in the mud. Now, the crowd could have destroyed some of the prints, but no way they destroyed all of them. Detectives looked into the man who claimed to see a girl on a bike. The farmer who Mary thought was in the field was selling produce in another part of the city. His son was in a farm building working all afternoon. The coroner didn't find any evidence of violence on Nancy's body besides a bruise on her head, but according to Nancy's mother, she got this bruise before she died. Nancy's mother fought an exhumation of her body, saying it wouldn't do any good. So, all right, we go from Mary herself telling everybody, this is what I did.
Right.
To now people questioning whether or not she's telling the truth because, some of the evidence, some of the crime scene things just don't line up with what she's saying. On November 25th, Marie Phillips said she was sure that her friend was innocent of murder and that Nancy's death was accidental. The Philadelphia Inquirer wrote that Edward Panic, director of Camp Happy, told the papers on November 25th, Miss O'Connor did a very good job with the children last summer. Nothing I could possibly say about her would be detrimental. The fact that she was reappointed to the post of counselor after the summer of 1936 is proof enough of the caliber of her work. The children seem to be very fond of her.
Well, so he's praising her.
Yeah, he's praising her and he's saying, there's nothing bad that I can say about her. Now, does that mean she couldn't have struck this young girl and caused her death? No, it doesn't mean that.
Right.
But you have a conflict about events transpiring at Camp Happy.
Sure.
Now, is the director of the camp probably going to come out and say, oh yeah, I knew about this, and this,
but I didn't do nothing about it.
Right. Probably not.
Right.
But who do you believe? An inmate who says there was a lot of, funky stuff going on, or the camp director and some of the other people that work there.
Right.
So, it's just all things to weigh in what is going to be a very strange case. I mean, it just is. Attorney William Gray announced on November 26th that Mary wouldn't be convicted on the word of an ex-convict and a couple of kids. He made this prediction after Mayor Wilson failed to issue the warrants for Mary and Marie Phillips on sex crimes charges. So the mayor was pretty high on this, right? Really wanting to go after this.
Yeah, he did.
He went as far as kind of laying it out to papers that this is what he believed happened. He implicated Marie, but then didn't, file charges or issue warrants. Gray confirmed that he was retained by Mrs. Phillips. He also said that he ordered Marie, as well as Mary's mother, not to speak to reporters.
That's probably smart.
Pretty good advice, normally, right? 2 hearings took place on November 29th. One for Mary's murder charge and one for the charges of alleged sexual misconduct. Joseph Glenn was the first witness. He testified about finding Nancy's body on Labor Day, September 6th, between 4:15 and 4:30. He said he was driving his car with his son and 2 other children. He was near Nolan's Woods and saw a collapsed oil drum in his path. The mayor then presented the oil drum. So we keep saying the mayor, Gibbs, but he's like the prosecutor too.
Like his role is
multi-faceted.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a lot going on. Mr. Glenn confirmed that it was the same oil drum covering Nancy's body. He said he attempted CPR after finding Nancy under the oil drum. He then drove her to the hospital where she was pronounced dead. The second witness was the undertaker, John Inyon. He testified that there were marks of what he called exterior violence on Nancy's body. He presented some original notes from his examination, which showed that Nancy had a 1-inch bruise under her chin and bruises on her eyes and her nose. Nancy also had bruises on her thigh and on the front and center of one of her upper legs. There were 4 or 5 bruises, and each was the size of a 10-cent piece. He said there were similar marks on her right arm. She had 10 to 12 superficial scratches between her ankle and knee, and a black mark on her neck where it joined her body. Inyon said he did not give this evidence at the coroner's inquest, but he did tell Detective Warren Murphy before the funeral. He didn't speak at the coroner's inquest because he wasn't called as a witness. He didn't tell the coroner about the marks because, as he said, he knows much more about it than I do.
Yeah, but hearing all that just doesn't sound like it was a couple punches.
You talking about the number of bruises, the superficial scratches. Yeah, I get that. Now, could some of the bruises have come from Nancy hitting the ground after she was hit on the chin?
Could have.
The scratches, maybe. I don't know.
Just seems like a lot, though.
But I'm focusing in on this coroner. So the undertaker is right when he says that the coroner knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. I didn't feel like it was my place to tell the coroner.
So why didn't the coroner
note it?
And who would have gotten the body first?
Well, I would think the coroner, right? The coroner has to do his or her work, and then the body would be given to the undertaker, right? So that begs the question. Were the bruises and scratches and everything there, at the point where the coroner received the body? Did it happen during the examination? Did some of it? Or during transport to the undertaker? I don't know. But there are questions I think that are valid. They have to be asked. Don't let allergy season slow you down. Get common allergy meds for as little as $15 with GoodRx. So you and your family, pets included, can stop allergy symptoms before they start. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy to save up to 80% on both brand and generic medications. And did you know GoodRx rewards you for saving money too? Join GoodRx Rewards today and earn points every time you use a coupon. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not. And it could be your insurance copay price. I've been using GoodRx for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have saved money even with my insurance. Stop allergies before they start and save big on allergy medications this season with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. Once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like their 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince, and I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality, and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT. Witness Anna Hunter testified that she saw Nancy at 1:40 p.m. on September 6th. Her daughter Jean was playing with Nancy and Mary in an alley. Several witnesses testified about seeing Mary and Nancy that afternoon. One witness saw Nancy following Mary on her bike. Okay, so to me, that seems pretty damaging because it seems to follow Mary's account and confession. Mrs. Gleen testified that Mary told her she hadn't seen Nancy after 1:30 and that other people also said they hadn't seen her. The neighborhood started a search, which ended with Joseph Gleen finding Nancy's body. Neighbor John Dunleavy testified next. He told the court that Mary said that after hiding Nancy's body and burning her gloves, she went to her neighbor's house and washed the mud off her hands, shoes, and stockings. John Dunleavy testified that Mary came into his house and asked to use the bathroom. Now, he said that she often visited his house, so when she asked, he said yes. She left a few minutes later. He didn't tell the police about this at first.
Well, for him, it probably wasn't out of the ordinary.
Well, and why would he think to tell the police? Unless you knew that they thought Mary had something to do with this child's death. At that point, then, yeah, you're going to say, oh, by the way, I need to let you know this happened. Detective Murphy testified about Mary's confession on November 21st, but he was interrupted when defense attorney William Gray and Mayor Wilson got into what a bunch of papers described as a bitter personal clash. And it was basically Gray accusing Captain Murphy of instructing Detective Murphy.
Well, there's a lot of Murphys going on here.
Yeah, we mentioned it. There was 4 people, 2 of them named Murphy. The mayor said, "I don't believe Captain Murphy did any such thing. You're just trying to make publicity. Go on with the case. This is just your regular method." Gray shot back with, "Well, with a judge like you, who is judge, prosecutor, and everything else, I've got to be on my toes." So this guy is the mayor, the prosecutor, and apparently the judge as well.
He wears a
lot of hats.
A lot of hats, sir.
Wilson said, "Then you admit that that's the method you use." And Gray said, "Why, you rat, you dirty rat." Ooh, you dirty rat, you.
And it sounds like the
old gangster movie.
Yeah, or that clip they do in Home Alone.
Okay, so that's where you know it from.
That's where I know it from.
So these guys got into like a real argument. I mean, they were telling each other to shut up, shut your mouth. Wilson at one point said, "Well, at least I haven't been divorced yet. This is in the middle of court.
Wow, man.
Someday I'll get you where I want you. And when I do, I'll crack you and crack you right. Name the place right now and I'll be there." So he's threatening the mayor, who is the judge, prosecutor, cab driver. I don't know what all this guy did.
He does it all in the city, man.
Back in the day. And then he's basically saying, "Hey, we'll rumble. You tell me, you'll tell me when and where, and I'll be there.
I'll drop you where you stand."
I guess it was Detective Murphy who calmed things down. He continued testifying about the confession. According to Murphy, Mary refused to sign and asked to speak to her grandfather. to talk to him about getting an attorney and money for bail. And I did find that odd. Right? She seemed to want to confess to numerous people, including this detective. But when it came time to sign her confession, it almost seems like at that point she said, "Oh, I shouldn't do this."
Yeah, something my stomach's saying, stop now.
Yeah, don't do this. I need an attorney. The sex charge hearing took place after the homicide hearing. Captain Murphy testified that he interviewed a witness named Joseph Costello on November 26th, who was an inmate at the House of Corrections. He was charged with drunkenness and disorderly conduct. In the summer of 1937, this Costello guy said that he was told by a guy that worked at Camp Happy about an incident that he saw at camp involving Mary O'Connor and Marie Phillips. Now, this guy that told him this also had a long history of arrests. He actually spent one of his jail terms working at Camp Happy.
I'm not sure if that's the best use of time.
Well, I don't know about use of time, but I think as a parent, I'm now reconsidering my application to Camp Happy for my child.
Yeah, I'm not sure, again, how happy is Camp Happy?
Well, you've got a bunch of, let's say, guys and girls who are college students. Okay, I get that.
That's like a lot of camps.
Now you're telling me that people are doing their time, quote unquote, serving as whatever.
Yeah.
In whatever capacity at Camp Happy. I'm not as happy about Camp Happy once I find that out.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'd want to know what they were in for, I guess. Like this guy was in for being drunk and disorderly.
Yeah, I get it. It didn't say what all of his arrests were for, so they could have been. But even, if you got a bunch of drunken, disorderly conduct arrests, do I want you around my 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old?
No, especially if you're bringing in alcohol.
Yeah, I probably don't.
Have a sip of this, Junior.
I'll take my business down the road to Camp Kinda Happy. Not truly happy. We're just kind of happy.
Let's just keep it real life, right? That's the real life camp, kind of happy.
Well, if we were talking real life, it'd be called Camp Get Out of My Hair for a Week.
Yeah.
Is what it would really be
yeah,
called.
That's true.
So this guy that had worked at Camp Happy sent an affidavit to the mayor accusing the two women of certain abnormal practices. That's what it said in all the papers. In quotes, certain abnormal practices. And it was really based on this affidavit that the mayor, went forward with these charges on Marie and Mary. This guy did testify that in July 1937, he caught Mary O'Connor and Marie Phillips in an unnatural act. He testified that he wrote a letter to a friend about having seen the women do an unnatural act.
So we're taking the convict's word on something that happened back at camp that he thinks might have been an unnatural act.
Well, an unnatural act is kind of a very broad term.
It really is.
If you think about it. Now, in 1937, putting it into context, my assumption is that he's saying they were having sex with each other.
Yeah.
But in 1937, you don't come out and say that.
No.
I guess. Because he was asked to elaborate at one point, and he said, you know what? I've talked too much already. He refused to say exactly what he saw, but he said that he would speak about it in private. The judge said that he couldn't hold the women without knowing exactly what they did if he couldn't substantiate the charge he made in the affidavit, or if he had lost his nerve. There was nothing left for me, the judge speaking, to do but discharge these defendants.
I mean, you made these claims. Why can't you finish it through?
It seems so strange that this guy, is too shy to say in front of a court that these women were kissing or they were doing more than that or whatever they were doing. Or does he not want to be specific because it didn't really happen? And so he didn't know exactly what to say. It's easy to say unnatural act because that could be all kinds of different things.
It could.
But he wouldn't do it. So on November 29th, the charges against Marie and Mary were dropped due to lack of evidence. The judge threatened to have this guy arrested on perjury charges if the police provided an affidavit. This guy spoke with the mayor and said that what he said was true, but he was nervous at the hearing. And as the prosecution, you're not happy with this guy.
No.
Because you went forward on all of this based on his affidavit. Then you get to court and the guy is too nervous to, go into any type of details. The mayor did continue the $500 bail against Marie Phillips as a material witness to the homicide. And he continued holding Mary on $5,000 bail. I mean, this guy is the most powerful person in Philadelphia because, I said the judge, how can he not be the judge? Isn't the judge the one that makes the decision on bail and all that?
He does.
I'm kind of perplexed about it, to be honest with you. On December 1st, Mary posted bail and was released. She returned to Merchantville to be with her family. $5,000 in 1937 is a boatload of money.
Yeah, it really was.
What do you think that would be today?
Oh.
Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, boop.
It's $250,000.
All right. We'll see how close you are.
Yeah.
People always let me know. I do think it's a lot of money.
It is.
Now, I think in that situation, you're going to get a lot of family coming forward to help post that. And I don't know if they had to post the whole 5,000. Did they have bail bondsmen in 1937? I really don't know.
I'm trying to remember when the Great Depression was.
Yeah, my understanding was that it lasted during the 1930s, right? It might have started in the 20s or late 20s, but it was going on, I thought, throughout most of the 30s.
Yeah. So for a family to come up with bail money, that amount of bail money is pretty impressive.
During that time, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, there was no details about how they came up with it or, anything like that. On December 8th, a second coroner's inquest declared Nancy's murder death by drowning. So we've gone from accidental death to death by drowning. And on December 14th, a grand jury indicted Mary O'Connor on charges of murder and manslaughter. The jury was selected on February 14th, 1938 for the trial of Mary Keenan O'Connor. She pleaded not guilty to murder and manslaughter. The state said that they might seek the death penalty if Mary was convicted of first-degree murder. Judge Joseph Sloan oversaw the trial, and it was reported, Gibbs, in a lot of papers that this was his very first murder case. So I've joked a lot about the mayor. He's obviously not the judge in this thing. He might have been, it sounds like, kind of all-encompassing in the proceedings leading up to the trial.
Right.
Like all-powerful.
Yeah.
Is the way it sounds. But by Oz. But now, obviously, we have a judge here. Mary's defense was led by William Gray, who we've talked about. Charles Gordon led the prosecution. Testimony began on February 15th. Mary's defense argued that she hit Nancy accidentally and left her at the scene, but not in the puddle. But her defense offered no explanation for how Nancy got into the puddle. And I'm still stuck on this word accident, accidentally. To me, when you hit somebody accidentally, it's like you turn around, you didn't know somebody was there, and
right.
you hit them.
Yeah.
You hit a 5-year-old to make them stop doing something. To me, that's not an accident.
No, I don't think so either. If it was out of anger, sure, maybe it was not premeditated. It was just an act of
rage but that's
reaction.
But to me, that and accident, they don't equate.
No.
They don't equal up. And it seems to me as though the defense has got a real uphill battle here, right? They have Mary's confession. And I thought the confession included leaving Nancy in the puddle and covering her with the oil drum.
Yeah.
So now they're saying, okay, she didn't do that part, but we don't know how Nancy got in the puddle. Mary testified on the 17th for 2.5 hours. She first spoke about the day of the murder.
It's a lot of talking. 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours? Yeah, I mean, think about the Johnny Depp trial and Amber Heard.
Wow.
They were on the stand for a long
They
time.
really were.
So 2.5 hours to them would have been a cakewalk. According to Mary, one of her bicycle tires was soft. She took her bike to a service station for air, You remember when service stations used to give out free air?
I do.
Now I think you got to put like a quarter in there. It's probably gone up by now. I don't know.
Probably a lot more than that.
I don't know. I have a compressor at my house, so I don't need it. But that was kind of a big thing, right? Everybody would go to the service station to fill up their bicycle tires, whatever, because there was free air there. They're just giving it out.
I think you have to swipe your credit card and it's $1.25. And you better hurry up and fill up all 4 of your tires before the pump runs out.
Or you got to do it again.
You only get so much time to do that.
Mary testified that she let Jean Hunter ride her bike. She walked with Jean and left her at the entrance to a dirt road leading to Nolan's farm. She said she didn't know that Nancy was following her. Mary was walking along the dirt road to reach a paved road so that she could ride her bike. She was straddling the bike, but her feet were walking on the ground. Then she fell down and coins fell out of her pocket. She heard someone call out and saw Nancy. Nancy started pestering her for a ride. Mary said no, but she told Nancy that if she helped pick up the coins, she would give her a penny. But she said Nancy kept asking for a ride and Mary hit her. Mary told the court, "I just turned around. For some reason or other, I struck the youngster with the back of my hand. She fell down. I knelt down and felt her pulse. I don't know what happened. I thought she was dead. I got a 10 somewhere. I don't know where, and I put it over her."
So it just appears that to Mary, everything happened fast, right? She was frustrated. She turned around, hit her with the back of her hand. Nancy went down on the ground.
Okay, that part I understand. I'm not saying it's right.
No, I know.
I understand what she's saying happened. It's the part after that I'm having a real struggle with. I mean, I'm not saying I don't struggle with an adult hitting a 5-year-old child, because I do, but the part about, I knelt down, felt her pulse. I thought she was dead. And because of that, I got scared. So I found something and I put it over her.
Right.
Now there's no mention of the puddle, right, at all. But my thought, Gibbs, is that the majority of the time somebody is hit with the back of someone's hand, even a 5-year-old, it's not going to kill them. Now, could they fall and hit their head on something and die? Yes, that's a possibility.
Yeah, it just seems there's got to be more to the story.
Yeah, there has to be, because the way that she's telling it just does not make sense to me. And obviously she hasn't addressed the puddle at all, but the defense is saying she didn't put her in the puddle. When asked if she hit Nancy deliberately, Mary said, "Oh no, I wouldn't strike a little child." When asked if she turned Nancy face down into the puddle, she said no. But then they started asking her about her confession. Mary testified that Captain Murphy typed her statement. He read it out to her, and she corrected him about the mud puddle. According to Mary, Murphy responded, "Well, Mary, I thought it should be put that way so everybody reading it could understand." Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more information. We don't know if it's true or not, but we're getting more information as to maybe why she's not saying that she put Nancy in the mud puddle.
Right.
Because according to her, she didn't confess to doing that. That was all Captain Murphy. Apparently, Captain Murphy asked her to write down her corrections, but Mary was vague about what corrections, if any, she made. She refused to sign the statement until she spoke to her father. Mary said that after she was taken to the city jail, she told Detective Warren Murphy she was tired, but he refused to leave the room. The state responded that Murphy spoke with Mary throughout the night because she said she couldn't sleep. So as in a lot of cases, right, you have one person saying something, a person on the other side saying something different. Very normal. But what never changes, Gibbs, is at the end of the day, it's all up to what either a jury or a judge, depending on the type of trial, believes is the truth. Under cross-examination by the prosecution, Mary said she didn't think the 10 put into evidence was the 10 she covered Nancy's body with. She couldn't remember where she got the oil drum from. She again denied turning Nancy face down into the mud puddle. The defense had 19 character witnesses testify on Mary's behalf. The prosecution presented both Mary and Marie Phillips's statements as their main argument. Why wouldn't they? Their confessions.
Yeah, you'd want to make sure the judge and jury heard those.
And I think you would want to craft your entire narrative, or your case with those as your centerpiece.
Yeah.
It's not one confession. Well, it is one confession, but it's coming from two different people. Right. You've also got her father. You've got the detective. So there's a lot to work with there. Dr. William Wadsworth testified about examining Nancy's body. He said there were hard to identify bruises on her neck. He said it wouldn't have been possible for Nancy to have inhaled so much mud and a small stone unless someone held her down in the mud puddle.
Yeah, I don't think it's something she would voluntarily swallow.
Although I have disclosed before that I ate paper towels as a kid, so.
Well, you're just weird.
I am. I was. I don't eat them now. Nancy's parents and brother testified. Other witnesses testified about seeing Mary on the day of the murder. Prosecutor Charles Gordon told the court in his closing argument, the only inference you can come to is that the child, with its face down in the water so hard that it inhaled some mud and a pebble, was held there. If Mary O'Connor held that child's neck down in the water, members of the jury, that's as clear a case of murder as anything I have ever heard. And I would agree with that. If that's what really happened, that is absolutely murder. There's no doubt about it. I think the question gives is that really what happened?
Well, only Mary knows.
And as I think about this case, I'm wondering, what would it be without Mary's confession to Marie, without her confession to the detective, which may or may not have, or should not have included the mud puddle.
Right.
What would the authorities have?
Not much.
The fact that she was seen with the girl by some witnesses.
Yeah.
Judge Sloan told the jury before deliberation, if you believe the testimony of the defendant, it is your duty to acquit her. So there were 4 possible verdicts: first-degree murder with the death penalty or life in prison, second-degree murder, voluntary manslaughter, or involuntary manslaughter. The jury ended up choosing none of these options. So this case is by no means over. And obviously we have a lot more to pack into part 2. We'll discuss the shocking verdict of Mary O'Connor's murder trial, a legislative committee's investigation of the jury, and the reason Mary made headlines again more than 30 years later after this trial. So Gibbs, as we wrap up this episode, obviously a little bit of a cliffhanger, right?
Leaving us hanging?
Leaving everybody hanging a little bit. It's kind of hard. We always say that when you have a multi-parter to figure out where to stop. This seemed like the most logical place to stop. Obviously, we know that the jury is going to come back with a kind of a shocking verdict.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it in episode 2. But as we kind of wrap up this part 1, it's such a strange case. You have a 5-year-old little girl who was tragically killed.
Yeah.
Was it murder? And if so, was it Mary? Again, this case is clouded because of her confession.
Right.
She's admitting to things that are very damning. When you admit to striking a child, and then you admit to kneeling down, feeling for a pulse and believing that the child is dead, you admit to covering the child up and leaving.
Yeah. It sounds like at a minimum, you have manslaughter.
Yeah. At a minimum, you caused the death.
Yeah.
Now, to what degree? In most instances, that's what we'd be trying to figure out, or a jury would be trying to figure out. To what degree of murder?
Right.
Do we assign, your blame, or however you want to say it? But it's why this case is kind of shocking.
Yeah.
And then obviously, time goes by. There are some other events that happen. All of that we'll get into in part 2.
Well, Oh, I can't wait for part 2.
All right, we got some voicemails, though. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hi, this is Erica down in San Diego. I was just calling to let you guys know that I had just finished listening to Richard Ramirez and Ice Soccer case when my AC broke. And there was one night I had to sleep with the windows and doors unlocked. We have a screen door for our back. I slept with my gun, and I don't think I got an ounce of sleep that night. But I just wanted to tell you guys, I probably would have slept peacefully if I had not been listening to you guys. So thanks for a restless night of sleep. Keep up your guys' good work. Take care.
I could see where a case like Ramirez would scare you if you were forced to leave a bunch of windows open, the back door open with just a screen door.
Yeah.
That screen door is not stopping anybody.
No.
Especially Richard Ramirez. But, those cases, and you get into even some of the unsolved cases, but, the Golden State Killer, the pillowcase rapist, which we did, not that long ago on Unsolved.
Right.
But these cases where people break into homes, that's very scary stuff. Because why? Your home is your sanctuary.
Sure is.
It's your safe place.
Yeah.
You're supposed to feel, warm and cozy. But these people make it tough for us.
They do.
To feel that way.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Amy from Queens, New York. I just listened to the latest episode about Olga and her friend, and someone mentioned at the end who boils hot dogs. Everyone in New York boils hot dogs. If you've ever heard of a dirty water dog, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm suggesting a case. It's from Floral Park, New York. It's probably the only murder, well, not the only, but maybe one of 3 murders that has been in this town that's just outside of the border of Queens. It happened, I believe, in the 90s. On Carnation Avenue. I don't know the name of the person, but the guy was put away. All right, bye.
Hey, do you know my friends Doug and Carrie Heffernan? They're from Queens.
He's actually the king of Queens.
Yeah, actually
from what I remember.
Yeah.
So, yeah, obviously the boiling of the hot dogs has surfaced in now 3 episodes.
Oh, for sure.
But it goes back to the episode right before that one. And I think the observation that was being made in that voicemail was, and you made it as well, why are you boiling hot dogs when you're out in the kind of the wilderness?
Right.
And you would have to make a fire to boil the hot dogs anyway. Exactly. Why not just cook the dogs over the fire? Yeah. I think was the whole point of it. I actually really like boiled hot dogs. I also really enjoy my hot dogs in the microwave. I cook them a lot just in the microwave, which makes me strange. I have since I was a youngster.
I've done that before. You take the knife and put a little
slice
down the middle so it doesn't blow up.
Because when I was young, the microwave was something I was allowed to use.
Yeah.
You can't really do too much unless you put aluminum foil or a fork in there, which I've seen people do.
Can happen.
But thanks for that case suggestion. We'll definitely check it out.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. This is Andrew Ramsey out here in North Carolina. Hope you are both doing great. I've been listening about 4 months now, and I just signed up for Patreon. I also signed up my brother as a birthday gift since he's the one that introduced me to the show. Been trying to spread the word to all my true crime loving friends since. Anyway, keep up the great work, and y'all stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Man, that's awesome.
That is awesome. Do that for yourself, but then also do it for your brother.
Yeah.
Now, that's something you would do that for yourself, but would you do it for one of your brothers? That I don't know. I don't even know if you'd do it for yourself, to be honest with you.
How could you ask me that? Now it's out there. Now I have to give a response.
I should just call one of them and say, is this something Gibby would do or has ever done?
Yeah, this is what I do. Breaking
up. But that is very cool. Very, very cool. All right, we had some mailbag. Aaron sent us a Harley chip and said sorry to you, Gibby, because she ate all the Twizzlers.
What?
Yeah.
She got them and said, you know what? I waited too long to put them in the mail, so I ate them.
Who can resist, right?
Yeah, that's okay.
We also received a crocheted Ed Gein nipple belt.
Yeah.
From E. Gein Fashions.
Well, very, very fancy.
It's striking.
Yeah. That's all I'm going to say.
I can see you wearing that maybe on your next model shoot.
You think?
maybe on your next cover.
Yeah. I was going to wear it to the, when I got to get up on stage.
Well, yeah, or make it a part of your next outfit, a stage outfit, your next routine. Holly sent us a book of Texas sayings. Pretty cool. We'll have to dip into some of those.
Yeah.
Probably some you already say.
Was that one right there? Got to dip into some of those?
No.
Oh, that's just a Fergie saying.
Yeah. I think that is said maybe in all kinds of different places, not just in Texas. I actually leafed through it and there were some things I had never heard in my life.
Really?
Oh my gosh. So we'll have to go through it. Yeah. Maybe we'll do some on Patreon or something, but sayings that I have never heard. All right, buddy. So that's it for another episode of True Crime All the Time. We'll be back next week with part 2 of Mary Keenan O'Connor. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
It was over 30 years ago that Clifford Olson first called me. Secret phone calls from Canada's most notorious serial killer.
I knew I was killing the children, but I couldn't stop myself.
Now it's time to unearth the tapes, because I believe there are still answers to be found. I'm Arlene Bynum from CBC's Uncover, Calls from a Killer. Available now.